One of the issues that I have faced in my own writing practice is how to begin a poem, how to begin. And of course, we can write anything we want at any time, but often we find ourselves, I mean, maybe it could be just a problem for me, I don't know, but often I think it's easy to find yourself kind of staring at a page, just staring at it, and you may feel a kind of urgency. You may feel it, all of you I know in this room probably know what I'm talking about. You feel the urgency to say something. And so it's the kind of thinking that we don't arrive at in steps. It's like you hear it and then something clicks and you say, oh, that. Or something like, what do you say, his mouth is a gate of hell. Right? And suddenly you're like, oh, okay, I get that. Like, what is it? Like a needle in my hand, the sight of her hair. You know, different little, the way we make connections beyond what we could ever explain. And in this respect, poetry is clearly akin to music. Most of us, when we listen to music, we certainly do not hope that someone will explain the melody to us. No one hopes that they will explain the harmony. It is a felt understanding. And the music that we love, we just love. No one has to teach us to love it. You know, you just hear it and you think, yes, that's good music. I think about, for example, the first time I heard Sade's voice, for example. Smooth Operator, some of you remember this song. And you know, before you know anything, probably by the second verse, you think, yes, I really like that. And it's impossible to say exactly why. I feel the same way about, going back further, my relationship to Jimi Hendrix, for example. I mean, some of you may like Hendrix, but some of you may not. But the idea is that for each of us, there is a point at which we simply know what we feel. We know we know how a particular piece of art is taking us. We don't know why it's taking us, but we are taken by it nonetheless. When we think about haiku, for example, those are often, I mean, there are, of course, hundreds of thousands of haiku out there, and you may find some that are just okay, but every so often, one will just like, your head snaps back. Why is this? We don't know. But what interests me about this, and haiku in particular, because some of the most marvelous haiku that I know of comes from, you know, many hundreds of years ago, probably back to thousands of years ago. Certainly, any of like if we think of Basho, for example, Basho did not anticipate my interest in haiku. Right? He did not, right? Nonetheless, he wrote things that make me say, oh my goodness, yes. And so when we think about the ways in which poetry, for our purposes, extends the idea of human community, we can really think about it also in terms of historical writings as well. People who we will never meet, at least in this life, were speaking to us from centuries away, right? And we think about this all the time in the poets that you may love. You can think about Shakespeare, if you like, or Langston Hughes, if you like, or whomever else you imagine, Afra Ben, anyone, you know, the writers who reach us, even though they could not have had any idea of our lives. And so when we think about empathy, I think the only way this is possible is that somehow what Basho, for example, understood about the condition of human life and perception through language, somehow that connects to something I understand and know about perception and language and heart, right? And so this is the thing. So I like to think that our task as people, and as poets in this case, is really pretty important. The idea that, given how fractured the world often appears, I think very quietly, art in general, but poetry in particular, is a kind of reconnecting and reattaching a kind of spiritual glue that says even if you're from Palestine, or even if you are from Nigeria, or even if you are from Saudi Arabia, or even if you are from Israel, or even if you are from Canada, or Alaska, or Australia, still, as a poet, you may be speaking to something particular about my condition, having never met me, having never seen me, having never imagined my life. And this is important, and we don't know who hears our poems, and we don't know how our poems fall into other people's hands and so on. I will not go on like this, but it's certainly something I think about a lot in terms of how poems operate. Though this country seems to remain at least more ignorant of poetry than I wish it were, the people who do read poetry, and there are many, as I've traveled around the country and read and so on and met other writers and heard about their experiences, there are many people who do care about poems, who think about poetry. They may never write a line, but they find this thing, that I think that we're searching for in our daily practice or our weekly practice. But they find this thing just in reading a poem that says that their life is something like other lives, that the difficulty and pain or confusion that all of us suffer, and also the delights that we readily embrace are not unlike the delights that they enjoy. And this is important. Again, I can't, at least for me, I can't overstate what feels to me to be a really essential thing about that we begin to be less inclined toward falling away into camps and more inclined toward recognizing that our strength as a species, let alone as a nation, but as a species, as a kind of creature, is in recognizing how we are connected to each other and how, to the extent that it is possible, we protect each other as we are. You understand? Anyway, I won't go on like a madman.